Good afternoon and welcome once again to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. I'm joined by the Chief Agricultural Editor of SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hursh, 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director, Ryan Young, and I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director, Doug Falconer. It's been a couple of weeks, gentlemen, since we last had a chance to meet. Of course, some breaking news just coming in this Friday. We heard about Thursday night a hog barn fire in the Cudworth area just northeast of Saskatoon. Kevin, you know some of the people that might have been involved with establishing that about 30 years ago?
Yeah, it was the fellow I know was a cola, and I know ownership has changed, but I used to spend a fair bit of time doing some things with the pork industry in Saskatchewan, and that was one of the major production centers, the 1200 South farrow to finish unit, as I understand, and from listening to your reports, Ryan, doesn't sound like they were able to save anything.
Yeah, at least the barns for the most part. Reeve of the RM of Hoodoo said that the four barns were burned as a result of this fire that quickly spread. The firefighters, unfortunately, they couldn't save the building because of how quickly it spread. And I believe it was about 12,000 head of pigs that also perished in the fire as a result. So a lot of damage, a lot of loss here, but it's also a bigger loss for the community as well. I know it was also mentioned that the hog barn facility was a fixture in the community for 30 years, and a lot of people worked there as well. So it's kind of tough to see something like that, especially in a small town.
Kevin, would you foresee something like this being rebuilt in light of all the new regulations that are coming in for hog barns, especially Prop 12 in the States where they have to have a certain amount? And I'm wondering if they will even bother rebuilding or I mean, it's maybe too early to speculate, but what do you think?
It's a good question. Returns in the hog industry have often been very disappointing. So tough to cash flow. I would suspect it might depend upon their insurance situation and how much money they recoup from insurance so that they've got some money to work with. I guess starting from scratch does enable them to meet all the new health codes and human well or animal welfare codes, such as Proposition in California. So in some respects, it's starting over. The site is there, but I haven't had any discussions with the principals to know what their intentions are, and they indeed may not know either. The cleanup will be the biggest thing, and then dealing with insurance considerations.
All right, our next topic, of course, is Viterra and the Grain Services Union. At the time we're recording this, the Grain Services Union is now in a legal strike position, but we haven't heard of any news on that front yet when it comes to this. And I know, Ryan, you were following this story quite closely this week.
That's right. And as far as we know, the GSU officials, they're looking at the latest offer that Viterra has submitted to the union. So they started looking at it this morning, combing through it. Haven't seen any emails or any word yet on their decision, whether they approved it or rejected it. That remains to be seen. But there's a few sticking points when it comes to the negotiations. Both sides have been at the bargaining table for over a year now. And from what Steve Torgensen, the general secretary of the GSU, was saying, the workers want fair wages, better wages, as well as a better work-life balance, and tying into that as well as more respect in the workplace. So I asked him what he meant by better work-life balance. That's usually not something that I would hear, in these certain types of situations. Usually it's wages is number one, benefits is number two. So he was explaining that um, the workers, a lot of them, they have put in excessive amounts of overtime, and as well as having their schedules changed at the last possible minute. And it's not something like it was once or twice, once in a while it might happen because of short staff or anything. He said it was, excuse me, quite a regular occurrence that the schedules would change on the employees. So kind of resulted in some perception amongst employees that the company doesn't respect them and doesn't appreciate them. So they're trying to get the language worked out in terms of, how to better go about regulating the hours and how they can achieve that work-life balance, so to speak. So those are the main things that are kind of the sticking points, like I said before, in these negotiations. Sorry, I'm battling a cough. But yeah, kind of interested to see where this goes. Should the job action happen, it would be about 400. I've read somewhere between 436 and 450 employees would walk off the job. That's between uh, Local 1, which is the Viterra grain handlers and employees that work at the grain terminals around the province, and Local 2 being the IT, the logistics people that work at the head office here in Regina.
Kevin, I know we had talked a little bit about this, and you were uncertain how much of an impact this strike would have on the everyday farmer out there.
Well, a strike or a lockout, each one is a possibility depending upon how negotiations proceed. But in general terms, if a producer had a contract to deliver in the upcoming 2 or 3 weeks, that certainly could be delayed. But grain movement has been very fluid. There's lots of space in elevators, and lots of producers watching grain prices continue to decline have not been anxious to sell anyway. Grain movement has been pretty slow from the farm base. So I know it's not a popular thing to say, and farm group leaders are going to have to say this is a bad thing, we want this over with. But really, a strike of a short duration, whether it be a week or 2 or 3 weeks, I don't think would have a large negative effect on grain producers.
And to kind of add to that too, the point that Steve Torgensen brought up too was during the negotiation period, union members have taken it upon themselves to be in contact with local farmers that they deal with at terminals and to keep them up to date on how talks are going and to lay out any concerns that farmers might have and all that sort of stuff. So when I asked APAS President Ian Boxall and the chairperson of Sask Wheat, Brett Halstead, if they've heard anything from their members about union members going to their members or any other farmers they know about communicating how these negotiations are going, both said that they haven't heard anything. In fact, that was news to them when I mentioned it. So I thought that was kind of an interesting point there. A case of this person said this and the other person said to the contrary.
Well, you touched briefly, Kevin, on prices, grain prices and oilseed prices. And once again, it's been kind of a common denominator here for the last couple of weeks. Canola continues to free fall. Are you surprised by that?
I thought at some point that the slide would have to stop and reverse. It's just now and then you'll see some recovery, but it's been another bad week for canola prices, and the prices available to me locally are now under $14 a bushel, well under in some cases. So I don't think anybody anticipated this depth of a slide, but a lot of the commodities are soft and not going the right direction right now. So certainly I think it's something that is going to be on producers' minds as they wander around crop production show next week.
What do you think's behind it, Kevin? What's behind this slide?
It's you'd think that analysts could look at supply and demand numbers and tell us where grain prices are going to go, but year in and year out they prove that they can't put all of the factors together, and it's hard to assess demand. There's reasons for feed barley, there's reasons for durum, but for canola, we tend to watch that South American crop and whether it rains in Brazil and what Argentina's plans are and what American soybeans are doing. So certainly that whole oilseed complex has softened, and canola is probably one of the main victims.
Brian, I know you spoke to Adam Picallo from PI Financial in Winnipeg, and he said that really the US dollar didn't seem to be having an impact on it.
No, it wasn't at all. He was saying that usually when the US dollar goes up, the markets go down, and when the US dollar goes down, the markets go up. So it kind of teeter-totters a little bit. But yeah, like you say, it hasn't really done much at all. It's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what the exact cause is and why.
But I guess looking ahead to next week, it's the first big event for farmers of the new year. crop production show in Saskatoon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And Kevin, I know you've probably been to pretty much all of them. Are people looking forward to this event?
It's always a great event. It's the time of year when producers are making all sorts of cropping decisions, from crop contracting to fertilizer use to maybe some machinery upgrades. So it's a great time for producers to get together. It's not quite the same as the outdoor ag show, the Ag in Motion show, but the timing is very good, and I expect a large contingent of producers, and it'll be great for all three of us to actually be in the same place. It doesn't happen very often.
That's right. We will be all on location next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Something we've never done before, Ryan, is we're going to co-host the show for both CKRM and GX94. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be absolutely entertaining. I'm kind of pumped for it, actually.
I think it'll all come together. And of course, Kevin's going to be there. He'll be helping us out as well. He'll be our eyes and ears on the ground, and I'm sure he'll be stepping in here every once in a while, either recorded or live, for instance, to come in on our farm show for the next for that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. Are you looking forward to that, Kevin?
Yeah, I've sort of got a hit list of the things I want to attend. The major crop commissions are holding annual meetings on the Tuesday of crop show over at the Western Development Museum. I think the Sask Pulse Growers meeting could be very interesting. During the week, both oats and mustard have their annual meetings right at Prairieland Park, and I hope to take in some of that, as well as the market analysis parts of those meetings. At the theater, the New Farm Theater at within Prairieland at Crop Show, there are a number of interesting presentations. They're going to have the Innovation Award winners, the best of the best three of what is judged to be the top innovations at Crop Show will be presented. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. Sask Ag Hall of Fame inductees for 2024 will be announced. And Saskatchewan Crop Insurance has got a slot on the New Farm Theater. And I think there's going to be a lot of interest in hearing what's happening with crop insurance premiums. It was a major change last year, somewhat contentious. And especially in the areas that had crop insurance claims again, I think a lot of producers worrying and wondering what their premiums are going to look like in the coming year. So, man, there's no shortage of things and people to talk to next week.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of Chief Agricultural Editor Kevin Hursh and 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director Doug Falconer saying so long until next week.